In the world of Pokemon, there are a lot of really cool and interesting things that are a lot of fun to learn about. But every so often, you will come across something you wish you hadn't learned. Something you would have rather gone your whole life without knowing about, because then your brain wouldn't have been scarred for life. So naturally, that's what we're talking about today. Here are some more insane Pokemon facts that you don't want to know. Okay, so to start us off, I actually wanted to go ahead and sponsor myself really quick and let you guys know, if you haven't heard already, that I am making my own original monster catching video game. It's called Histrobi Chronicles, it's inspired by the Wild West, and you can check out the reveal trailer to learn more about it with the card on screen or in the end card of this video. I would really appreciate it if you gave it a look. Back to the topic at hand though, we're going to actually start things off by giving some more examples of how people in Pokemon are way too comfortable with each other. I mentioned a couple of these sorts of things in my previous Facts You Don't Want to Know videos, such as how people put Darumaka poop in their clothes to stay warm, or how kids used to eat the skin off of Appleton's back as a snack. It's all very, very gross and horrifying, but apparently that's just the way the Pokemon world works, because we've got even more of that in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. For example, in Veluza's Pokemon Scarlet Dex entry, it says, "When Veluza discards unnecessary flesh, its mind becomes honed and its psychic power increases." And in Violet it says, "It sheds spare flesh from its body to boost its agility and then charges at its prey." So basically, Veluza just rips off parts of its body that it apparently doesn't need just so it can attack you all the quicker. That would be like if you ripped off your ear just so you had less wind resistance when you were running after someone, which, in addition to being unspeakably horrific, has also got to make Veluza one of the most metal Pokemon of all time. It doesn't even stop there though, because Veluza's Scarlet Dex entry also talks about how people like to eat this flesh that Veluza discards. So the situation here is that Veluza rips apart its own flesh just to attack enemies better, and then people are just like, yeah, I could eat that. The Pokédex definitely never fails to impress each time a new game comes out, but a Pokemon ripping flesh off of its own body just so it can more effectively kill its prey is a direction I did not see coming. Another thing you probably did not see coming that will probably give you the biggest facepalm of your life if you didn't already know about it is that prior to the physical special split in Generation 4, the Ghost type was actually categorized as a physical type. Let me repeat that. Ghosts were considered by Game Freak to be physical prior to Generation 4. Now, I'm sure there are reasons behind this that involve balancing or something like that, but in no situation whatsoever can I possibly fathom what would actually justify giving the Ghost type the physical label, when it is, by its very nature, the least physical type in existence. It's also crazy that no adjustments were made to this until the physical special split in Gen 4, meaning that this was the case for about 10 years and no one at Game Freak even batted an eye. And as if this wasn't already ridiculous enough, even with the physical special split being the norm now, the vast majority of Ghost-type moves are still physical. I get that there's naturally going to be a little bit of crossover, especially with the physical special split being dependent on the individual move itself, but for as mind-boggling as it is that the least physical type in Pokemon was given physical status back in the early days, it's probably even more mind-boggling that for all intents and purposes, it's still a physical type even after the split. I really want there to be some kind of logic to all of this, but I just cannot see it for the life of me, and I think you would be better off just being blissfully ignorant on this, rather than actually trying to make any sense of it. Now, here is one that absolutely no Pokemon fan wants to hear. Back in 2019, it was actually mentioned by a Game Freak staff member in an interview that Pokemon isn't Game Freak's primary focus, and they are prioritizing the creation of other games instead. Now, even just those words alone are enough to make any Pokemon fan both angry and sad, but there's actually way more to this than you may have been led to believe. Taking a look at the interview, the Game Freak staff member in question was a programmer by the name of Masayuki Onoe. Speaking with Video Games Chronicle, Onoe stated in the interview that there are two different production teams here, simply named Production Team 1 and Production Team 2. Team 1 is fully dedicated to Gear Project, while Team 2 is for the Pokemon operation. What that means is that Game Freak as a company is prioritizing Gear Project, which is Production Team number 1, more than Pokemon in general. Now, obviously, no one wants to hear this as a Pokemon fan, and when this interview was first published back in 2019, many people used it as an opportunity to throw Game Freak under the bus. However, for as heartbreaking as this statement sounds, there is a bright side to it, because it's not as cut and dry as many people have tried to make this sound. This utterance by Onoe was actually only one part of the interview, where he is essentially saying as a whole that Game Freak prioritizes their Gear Project initiative, which is the side of the company that creates original games, so that they can ultimately make Pokemon all the greater. In the interview, Onoe says, "Gear Project has helped me become more creative. I've now seen the whole process of creation all the way to marketing and selling the game to players. I can now bring that know-how back to the Pokemon team and try to create something different for Pokemon. So it's a good synergy between Gear Project and Pokemon creation." So, for as grim as that quote may have sounded back in 2019, this one actually has a happy ending because the truth is actually quite the opposite, and Game Freak's focus on original game creation is actually so that they can bring new experiences and ideas back to Pokemon to make it all the better. And that is actually one part of this video that is really nice to know. Next, let's move from controversy to scarring you for life, because I would like to inform you, if you weren't already aware, that Machoke and Machamp aren't wearing any underwear like you thought they were, and are, in fact, just running around butt naked. So obviously these two Pokemon have long been noteworthy for the way that they wear clothes, not only with their championship belts, but also with their underwear. While they don't really get as much flack for it as other Pokemon, most people hate it when Pokemon wear clothes or appear to wear clothes, because to most people, it just comes off as bad design. However, people probably haven't complained much about Machoke and Machamp since they're so humanoid, and that underwear has actually been keeping things nice and appropriate this entire time, so they got a pass. But in reality, these Pokemon have actually been running around butt naked, and they've also been carrying you while running around butt naked in Sun and Moon. This is because it's been officially mentioned on occasion that what appears as underwear on Machoke and Machamp isn't underwear at all, but is instead just a natural pattern on its body. Obviously, from a design perspective, it is meant to resemble some kind of covering, probably because these Pokemon are so humanoid. But in reality, in the Pokemon world, these Pokemon have been running around naked like some streakers this entire time. And you know, I think I would actually be okay if they were wearing clothes instead this time, because my mind is just much less distraught that way. Alright, so we began this video with a Scarlet and Violet Pokemon, so let's go ahead and end it with another Scarlet and Violet Pokemon. By now, you've probably all heard a lot about Tinkerton, because it has proven to be one of the most popular Pokemon from this generation. I am in the minority here because personally I'm not really a fan of Tinkerton or its pre-evolutions, but you better not tell them that because they would probably beat me to a pulp and then use my remains as a toy. You've probably already heard about Tinkerton's Dex entry, where it says it uses its hammer to launch rocks at flying Corviknight, but what most people aren't talking about is how this entire evolution line has been given one of the darkest backstories in Pokemon history. It starts with Tinkertink, where it says in the Pokédex that its beloved hammer is often stolen by Pokemon who eat metal. Then we get a follow-up to this in its evolution Tinkertuff's Dex entry, where it says that it attacks Pawniard and Bisharp in order to gather metal from them in order to build its hammer. And this is continued again in Tinkerton's Dex entry, where it mentions it attacking Corviknight. Additionally, if you look at the color of Tinkerton's hammer, it's very similar to Corviknight's body color, and when you stitch all of this information together from each member of this evolution line, it's essentially implying that these Pokemon get bullied and stolen from as Tinkertink, and so they take revenge as Tinkertuff and Tinkerton by attacking and presumably killing Pokemon like Pawniard, Bisharp, and Corviknight, and then they use metal from these Pokemon, which is basically just like using their corpse to build their hammers. So in short, these Pokemon kill other Pokemon who have harassed them and proceed to build themselves hammers using the corpses of these killed Pokemon. I know I said earlier that Veluza was intense, but the Tinkerton line probably take the cake as the most metal Pokemon of this generation, and possibly of all time. And yes, that pun was absolutely intended. With that said though, I have probably scarred you all for life enough for one video, so I hope you enjoyed these Pokemon facts that you don't want to know. If you did, be sure to leave the video a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more if you're new. I will be back with another video very soon as well, and until then, as always, thanks so much for watching this one, I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.